Hey guys, welcome to Youth Night. It's good to see you wherever you're at. Hopefully, you've been having a good week so far. I know it's been crazy season, and I know all of us are dealing with things a little differently than we ever anticipated, but we know that God's with us through it all, right? And I just want to give a special shout out to you seniors that if you have not heard from us, it's because you haven't. I'm just kidding. No, we I think reached out to literally everybody. All of you should have heard from us by now, but you probably have not heard about our senior celebration, our graduation celebration that we usually do every year, and we have one planned for this year. But it was supposed to take place not this Wednesday night, but next Wednesday night. But with everything else being pushed back, we had to push it back. You'll be getting details this weekend on when, where, and what is happening. So just bear with us. But if you guys need to talk, or if you need to vent, or if you need to smash something, just hit us up. You can call, text us, DM us. We are in your corners. We love you guys. And tonight, right after this, right after the teaching portion, we will be getting on Zoom. And maybe you have, maybe haven't been on Zoom with us yet. I hope you'll join us tonight because it's going to be a time of just laughing and enjoying and discussing things together. So if you need the meeting ID, the password, whatever it is that you are missing, or if you are unsure how to sign up, how to get on, let us know. You can DM us and we'll get you those details. And we are excited because that has been really a hilarious time together, especially last week with our middle school guys group. It has been a blast. And this week, we are moving into week 5 of our quarantine challenge. So this week, we are doing the Disney challenge. It is anything that is creatively Disney. It can be you dress up as a Disney character, you sing a Disney song, you do a short film, kind of like a Disney movie or something like that. Something that is a Disney inspired thing. It could be a Disney art piece that you created, whatever it might be, and just get that in by midnight Wednesday night, and you will be in the running for winning. And it's going to be awesome, guys. I'm excited to see what you come up with. You have been nailing it. So much creative, really inspiring art and ideas have been shown throughout this whole quarantine games. I love it. And tonight we're on week 2 of our series Origin Story. So we're going to be launching into that. We're going to go ahead and jump right into our content and not waste any more time, because I believe that there's something that God has in store for you out of this content. What is the main purpose of a superhero? Is it just to battle weirdly dressed supervillains? Is it to wear spandex? Is it to have corny jokes and lines? What is the point? Do they just show off their superpowers, or do they just destroy cities? I think if we were to nail it all down to the real bones of it, they do all those things. But the real reason superheroes exist in these films is to help people. They desire to be good in the world. And last week we started this series where we talked about heroes fight for justice and how superheroes are known for helping people. But I have some good news for you. You don't have to be a superhero to do super awesome things. And that is what I want to talk to you about a little bit tonight. We're going to be sharing a story about this guy named Mark. All right, I want you to hear this story. It's only about a minute long, and we're going to share it with you right now. Mark.
My name is Mark Moore. I have been living homeless in abandoned homes for about 4 years. I came from poverty. I was able to get a college degree, work in the professional world. You know, I had goals of achieving success in corporate America, but I carried a lifetime of mental and physical abuse from my childhood. I suffered from anxiety, neurosis, depression, being alone, carrying all this on your shoulders without having insight. It forced me really into a mental breakdown. The darkest moments of homelessness is the sense of helplessness, not being able to take a bath or shower or shave. You just feel like I can't make it, and you just want to give up. Love Beyond Walls has helped me tremendously, make me an active part of society. Love Beyond Walls has gone through the process of helping me get identification, tracking down my birth certificate. They've helped me with clothing and a place to shower. They've given me a temporary place to stay. They've been a major part of me transitioning out of homelessness. You need help from others to get you out of homelessness, because you can't just do it by yourself. It's going to take helping hands along the way.
Terrence and his team at Love Beyond Walls didn't have superhuman strength or skill, but they did something heroic for Mark. I mean, what stood out to you about this story? What is something that you've seen? What was Mark's specific needs? I mean, how did they care for Mark whenever they finally got around to it? What was so impactful? I mean, before Terrence and the Love Beyond Walls team came together, why do you think nobody else helped him? What was standing in the way? When you hear stories like this, isn't it an inspiring piece of humanity? I mean, we get to see that you don't have to have all these incredible resources to do something incredible. And that is what I love about stories like this, that Terrence and a group of people came together to help someone else. And I mean, just like Jesus. And of course, Jesus did save the entire world, but he also did small acts of love throughout the entire process of his ministry. And that's exactly what he told us to do, to go forth and to do these things, to show love and to be a good force in the world. One of the last things that Jesus does before he goes on the cross and into the tomb and then is resurrected, he has this moment that happens. And it's in John chapter 13, verses 12 through 17 that I'm going to be reading in just a few moments. But before we do, I want to set this up. I want to explain it just a little bit. And that is, when Jesus is with his disciples on this last night, what he sees in them and what he explains to them is powerful. He actually takes a towel, puts it around his waist, and then he grabs some water and goes to each of them washing their feet. And whenever this is happening, we see a wide varying reaction about it because it's such a crazy thing. I mean, this person that they love, respect, admire is suddenly acting as a servant, getting down on his knees and washing their nasty feet. So we're going to read that together right here in John chapter 13. This is right after Jesus washes their feet. John 13:12. When he had washed their feet and put on his outer garments and resumed his place, he said to them, "Do you understand what I have done to you? You call me teacher and Lord, and you are right, for I am. If I then, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you also ought to wash one another's feet. For I have given you an example, that you should do just as I have done for you. Truly, truly, I say to you, a servant is not greater than his master, nor a messenger greater than the one who sent them. If you know these things, blessed are you if you do them." This is such a powerful thing and revolutionary idea for two reasons. The disciples' feet, first off, were super gnarly. They did not have the newest Jordans. They did not have closed-toe shoes. So what are they walking around in? Some sandals in the dirt, the desert, in all these different environments. They were probably stepping in some serious camel patties, I'm sure. I'm sure they were super nasty. It was not sanitary in the slightest what was going on with their feet. But Jesus is not just a friend serving his peers. Jesus is their respected leader, their rabbi, their teacher, mentor. It is such a profound thing whenever you have someone in authority stop being really in this higher level and bow down to do something for the person in front of them. And what he does is he serves them in such a crazy way, because I'm sure they were a little embarrassed to have Jesus at their feet. It probably felt wrong, but washing his disciples' feet, Jesus was showing them that he cared for them beyond just words, that he would care for them in the intricate ways, in the not convenient ways, in the dirty ways even, serving them, teaching them. It was something important that was going on here. And that's exactly what we see before his greatest act of love. Jesus is showing another act of love. It might feel like something lesser, but it is still a profound act. And that is exactly what Jesus does in this moment. And later on in the night, he goes on to tell them one more thing. And this is a profound thing that you and I really need to listen to. It's John chapter 13, verse 34 and 35. He says, "A new commandment I give you, to love one another. As I have loved you, you are also to love one another. By this, all people will know that you are my disciples, if you have love one for another." That is how people are going to know who you are. They aren't going to know it necessarily by all these other things. They're going to know by the love you show. That is how they're going to see it. Jesus, our hero, taught us how to love and care for others in heroic ways. He modeled it to the T. And Jesus spoke these words knowing exactly what was about to happen to him. He knew that this was the last moments before he would go on the cross, before he would be arrested, beaten, battered, and bruised. This was an act of love beyond ordinary things. And he did it for ordinary people like you and me. Jesus was showing us with his actions, not just giving us empty words on what it meant to serve and to love one another. And that is such a crazy thing to think about. We never really probably will have to literally lay down our lives for one another. If we're being honest, if you really think about it, we may or may not. I'm not saying it won't happen. I'm just saying it's unlikely. Something that is very likely is that we're going to have to show love and lay down our lives in other ways, sacrificially, just like Jesus did in this moment where he served his disciples. And I mean, this can be such a varying, really, spectrum of ideas right here. Because I know for me, one thing that becomes so clear the more time that even passes is that Jesus has profoundly loved me and given me so much. And I see this, and that's why I desire to do more for others, is because of that love that he has shown me. And just like several years back where I had a friend who was desperate for money. They were down on their luck. They had a few things that took place, and they were about to get kicked out of their apartment. And what they did is I assume I was probably last on the list. They probably had finally called everybody they could have called, and everybody else shot them down. I assume because we didn't have a great relationship. We had a decent relationship. And they called me and they asked me for a substantial amount of money just so they could pay their rent. And it was one of those moments where it wasn't about me. God showed me that the reason that he had given me the job, the money, and everything else that he had blessed me with was so that I could do something with it. And so we did this act of love, but it was because of the act of love that Jesus had showed me that I was able to do that for somebody else. God's decision to love me sacrificially reminds me that I am to love others sacrificially, just like it should for you. But the love we're talking about isn't just about buying someone a nice gift or even help them out in a way like that, but it is something even deeper. What does that look like? It's not about doing something for someone that you're going to get in return. A lot of people don't mind doing a favor for somebody. I had zero expectation I was going to get that money back, and I never did. And that's my point. It is a sacrifice. It's intended to be without. You're not intended to get it back. And Jesus didn't care really to be flashy or to show off his power. He did it in a caring and loving way for each and every time that he encountered someone with a need. It was so that he could show love and compassion and healing and ultimately salvation for these people. Jesus didn't hold back his kindness till the crowd gathered. He did it even in the midst of just one or two people because it was the right thing to do, not because it brought more attention to him. He didn't wait for his friend to get out his phone so they could get the picture of it happening. It wasn't intended for everybody. It was intended for the specific person that they were in front of in that moment. It was intended for the individual, not the crowd. In the same way Jesus heroically cared for people in front of him, he tells us to do the same. That's exactly what we see because he showed us how to love. We can love. So what does that look like? How can you and I not necessarily wash our friends' feet, because that's not really what I'm looking to do. But how can we sacrificially serve one another? How can we love others the way that Jesus loves? And how can we do something maybe even like Terrence did for Mark? How can we do those types of things? First, let's just walk through a few real life scenarios that might happen. Because this is more realistic. This is one of those things that is you're bound to run into. And that is maybe there's going to be that person that you know is struggling. Maybe it's that person next to you in school or whenever your neighbor down the street, whoever it is, or maybe they post something online and it's obvious that they're dealing with something. Maybe sometimes what it looks like to love and to serve one another is to reach out and to just check in, to listen intently and be a voice in somebody else's life, an ear to hear and someone to pray with them and be there with them in those moments. Maybe it's to give because you need to show others. Maybe they need that blessing. Maybe they need that help in that moment. Maybe it is volunteering at the more food resource center or church under the bridge. Maybe it's literally being active in those ways. There's so many things that you and I can do. These ordinary places are filled with extraordinary opportunities for us to show the love of Jesus. And I mean, it's easy to say that we want to do that. It's totally different whenever you actually do it. Because wherever you are, you need to be aware of the people right in front of you. You need to be aware that the people that surround you are perhaps in need of something that is small, not this big, gigantic thing. A lot of times, Jesus is exemplifying that in his teaching. We see whenever he talks to his disciples, he asks them at one point, do you have eyes to see? Do you have ears to hear? I wonder if he sometimes asks us that because we are so blindly looking past everything else going on around us. I wonder if he's looking at us like, hey, do you see what's in front of you right now? Do you see the person that is in front of you right now? Are you hearing their cries? Are you hearing their situation? I mean, here are a few ways that we can perhaps see a little more clearly and help people a little more in the simple, basic ways. Okay? Here's a few basic ideas. You could smile at somebody. I mean, just think about that. Smiling is contagious, and it brings joy into our lives and things like that. But how often do we pass somebody that we can just, nothing. I mean, that's terrible. I mean, I'm not saying every day should be all jolly, Johnny on the spot kind of thing, but there are moments that we need to recognize that people need to see a smile. Don't be that creeper, okay? That's not what I'm talking about. I mean, maybe you need to surprise somebody by asking them seriously how their day is, and don't just take fine as the answer. You know something's going on, right? Dig a little deeper. Give someone what they need. I mean, maybe it's a coat, gloves, shoes, whatever it might be. Help somebody out. Maybe it's just a pencil in class, whatever it might be. Ask someone questions about themselves and listen. So often we're just waiting for our turn to talk. We aren't actually listening to the people in front of us. Pay attention to how others are feeling. Just observe it. If you see someone hurting, angry, you can help them. You could be a part of that process. Sometimes it's just listening. And I mean, if you want to do a better job at caring for people in front of you, here's 4 words I really want you to pay attention to, okay? Awareness. Awareness is such a key thing here. Like we just discussed a few moments ago, the first step in caring for the people in front of us is to be aware, to be observant of their situation, their needs, their hurts, whatever it is they're going through. I mean, just be aware of what's going on. Because what happens to many of us is we get caught up, and it's totally understandable. Sometimes we need to take care of our things in life. I get that. But so often, it's kind of like looking at a piece of art, and we're just like 2 inches away from it. You're not even really getting the full spectrum of what's going on in front of you. So often we need to take a step back from our situations and look at what's in front of us, the people that God has placed there. Listening, what would happen if we just listened to the people in our lives? If we actively heard them, not just said, oh yeah, yeah. No, but literally listened, not just waiting for our turn to talk. What about interpretation? If we want to care for people in front of us, we have to think about the words that we use. I mean, seriously, think about that for a minute. It's not always about what you meant to say, but what you actually say. Listen. Tone matters. Body language matters. These things matter. Interpretation. Listen. Sensitivity. If we want to care for people in front of us, we must be sensitive to their experiences, to their perspectives. We don't fully understand everything, and maybe we won't always see eye to eye, but we can still be sensitive to the people in front of us. Sometimes our heart might be right, but our mouths are not. Sometimes our hearts might be right, but our mouths aren't. Think about that, guys. Those 4 words that we just identified, which one do you struggle with most? Do you struggle with being aware? Do you struggle with showing interpretation whenever you're trying to explain things, but you're not explaining it very well, you're not saying it very well? Maybe it's listening. Maybe you really struggle to listen. Or sensitivity, maybe you just cannot be sensitive for the life of you. Which one of those are the ones you struggle with most? Which one is really easy for you to go into? Because sometimes the most heroic things we can do are actually the smallest things we can do. But they can often be the most meaningful. We don't need to have superpowers to have this supernatural way of living. Because we have Jesus inside of us, we need to be willing to care for those people that are right in front of us. I want you guys to think about that. That's what a hero does. They are there to help the people around them, right? So I want you to think about this for real quick. Maybe you can identify somebody really quickly. Maybe it'll pop up later in the week. This is where awareness comes in, all right? I want you to think about this week, who are you going to heroically care for and show love for? Who are you going to serve? Who are you going to listen to? Think about that for a minute. It's important that we take a step this week towards being heroic in our faith, because Jesus has called us to do something greater than we could ever imagine. That is to care for, to love, and to serve those people right in front of us. I hope you guys think about that. We're going to pray that God gives us the wisdom, the strength, and everything else that it's going to take these steps together. So let's pray together real quick. Lord, I love you. I thank you for all that you've given us, Lord, that you are so kind and merciful. And Lord, that I want your love to shine through each and every one of us right now. Help us to be aware of the people in front of us. Help us to reach out and to really listen. Lord, that we would be sensitive to your spirit and to the things going on around us so that we could impact the world, that we know that you've not placed us here by accident but on purpose. And Lord, that we're asking that you're going to build us up and to embolden us for such a time as this, that you're going to touch each and every life and help us, Lord, through this season that we find ourselves in. I thank you for all that you've given us and, Lord, all that you're doing in us and through us right now. In Jesus' name, amen. I love you guys. We're going to be hopping on Zoom. I hope I see you there. If you need anything, we're here. We love you. Have a good week.